Good morning, friends. Welcome back to She's At It Again. My name is Tanya, and in this video, I want to share with you not just how to make the best meatloaf ever, but I want to show you how to make it to where you're not going to dread making it again. This is not a last-minute thing. I want to show you how to prepare for this ahead of time, so all you have to do at the last minute is pop it in the oven. Isn't that what we all want? It's just something that's easier. I don't want to make cooking hard for you. I'm not sharing these videos just so you can look back and go, wow, Tanya knows how to make a lot of things. Yeah, Tanya does know how to make a lot of things. But at the beginning, I was making it the hard way. I was waiting until the last minute. I was waiting until right before company came to start getting food ready. There is no reason to do that. I've helped a friend of mine cater, and I've catered long enough to where I know that anything you can get done ahead of time, do it. I am that person that shows up at a hotel room, whether there's a kitchen or not. I'm gonna show up with a crock pot or an electric skillet or something like that. I've got most of my food already prepared. All I'm doing is heating it up because we're eating in the room. Much to my family's chagrin because they're all about the eating out, but that's a big treat for us. We just never have done it. I was raised in a family, you just cook things from the kitchen. But we didn't travel much when I was a kid, but when I started mixing the two, when you travel and you cook from the kitchen, you learn how to get it done in a different way than most people do. So it's funny because years ago we went with some friends, another family, a husband and wife and two kids that we traveled with quite a bit. Went up to Branson, which is only about 3 hours from our house. Had such a good weekend. The last morning that we were there, they said, you want to go out and eat breakfast? And I said, no, I brought stuff to make in the room. And they looked at me kind of funny, like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I've already pre-cooked some bacon, and I have my dry ingredients for my pancake mix made up, and I have my buttermilk and eggs and oil and stuff in a jar to just add to it. So I'm just gonna make pancakes. We're gonna have pancakes and bacon, and I've got some milk and juice over there. They looked at me kind of funny, like, you're so weird, which, yeah, they've said that before. Well, guess whose room they showed up at eating breakfast? We were all in our little motel room. This was a cheap motel. We were all in our cheap motel room eating breakfast off paper plates, and they said it was the best breakfast they ever had. So anyway, not just because of my cooking, but because of the fun we were having, just laughing about the whole situation. We had the electric griddle set up on the bathroom counter, and we're doing that. But I had the bacon already cooked. All I had to do was just heat it up on the griddle, so there wasn't a big mess to clean up. It was so much fun. But just stuff like this, just thinking ahead and knowing what you have to get done, taking out the time-consuming part, and all you have left at that point is just enjoying the meal. So stick with us, and we're gonna show you some steps to make it better. Okay, the first thing we want to do with our meatloaf now, if you hear the dogs freaking out, it's because I'm now seeing the neighbor's dog walk around in its own backyard, and my dogs think everything is their yard, and they may start barking. So what I have is my saltines, my homemade saltines, and we did a video on these recently, and I just want you to know they're good enough to keep making. Oh, these have to be crushed up. So these are saltine crumbs that you're going to have. We're going to use a cup of saltine crumbs. So I'm going to crush these up. At my local Better Food store, the saltines are about $6 for just a small box. They were good, but yeah, if I can make these, it probably didn't cost me 30 cents worth of ingredients to make these, and they're not hard to make. This would be something to get a kid working on to learn how to make, just so they'll get the experience of a lot of different things, using a rolling pin, getting used to the feel of dough when it relaxes, just measuring ingredients, things like that. And they're just almost impossible to mess up. I'm serious. But they're really, really good. I've got this little tamper thing. I think I bought this from Pampered Chef years ago. It's supposed to tamp dough down into mini muffin tins. It never worked that well for me. I just use this part of my finger. Usually this has a longer fingernail on it. I poke a hole in something, so I just use part of my hand. If I could get my elbow down in it, I'd probably do that, but it might work better than this silly thing. But this works really good for this. You could probably put these in a blender or something and blend them up, but you don't necessarily need them in crumbs that small. Actually, break them up with your hands is working fine. Because what's going to happen is it's going to soak up a lot of the moisture from the other ingredients in this, and it's just going to be one of the binders in there. It has eggs in it, but this is going to be one of the binders. I'll just leave some of these chunky and some of them crushed up. And of course the dogs think there's going to be crackers flying all over the kitchen, so they're at my feet now waiting for something to fall in the floor. But I'm going to try not to drop anything. I'll try my best. I try my best. So what I want you to know about this meatloaf recipe, this is not one of those things you'll come in the afternoon and go, oh, I've got to get dinner ready. I've already got my meat thawed out, because that's not really the case normally. In real life, that's not normally the case. So what I'm doing, I'll tell you the scenario of what's going on here. Today is Friday, and I'm going to be having this for lunch on Sunday. So if any of you know the logistics to making it home from church and trying to get dinner ready or lunch ready in a hurry because people are showing up, or everybody's starving by that time, then you'll understand the fact that you don't want to wait till the last minute to make something on Sunday for lunch. So this is Friday morning. I'm going to be mixing up my meatloaf. I'm not going to put it in the pan yet. I'm going to leave it in a bowl, in a mixing bowl, in the refrigerator with all the ingredients in it. Later on this afternoon, after I get finished running some errands, which I have to do later on this morning, I'll shape my meatloaf, I'll bake it off, make the sauce to go on the top, and I'll let it cool down, put it back in the refrigerator, and then Sunday, all I have to do is pop it in the oven. So I'm going to be making some sweet and spicy green beans to go with it. I'll probably do a video for that. I'll be making honey rolls to go with this. I'll probably make a video for that. And I don't know what else. More than likely mashed potatoes, because scripturally that is the right thing to serve with meatloaf. Do we not all agree on that? So I'll have all those things done. Now, I'm not going to make a meatloaf video again because I've already made one of those. If you want to refer back to that, then I'm sure you can find that easily if you click on the information about our channel and look up videos. So again, I'm just going to mix up the ingredients today and then bake it off, or this morning, bake it off this afternoon, and then I'll warm it up on Sunday. So I'll already have my green beans done, I'll have my rolls done, I'll have my meatloaf done. So basically it's just warming up ingredients, but they're not leftovers. This will be the first time they've been eaten on Sunday. So this is part of the kitchen hack, if you will, of making meatloaf, is that don't make it at the last minute. You've got other things to do. People are needing your attention. So do it when either you don't have kids in the house, or the little ones are down for a nap, or at night after they've gone to bed. This is not hard. It's not really time consuming to mix up. So get it mixed up when nobody else is around that's needing your attention. That way you can get all your dishes washed up, get them put up, and all you've got is just this blob of meatloaf in the refrigerator. I mean, you can bake it at the last minute if you want to wait and do that step right before you need it. But as far as mixing it up, there's no need to do that all in one day. Okay, I'm going to get a spoon or a spatula. I'll use a spoon. So we've got our ground beef right here. This is 1.5 pounds of ground beef. Now I've used organic grass-fed ground beef. Use whatever you are comfortable with, and it should be just fine. This has, I don't know, pretty low fat content in it, so I don't know, but I'm going to give you another hack later on. It involves a broiler pan, so just stay tuned for that part of it. To this ground beef, we are going to add our 1 cup of saltine crumbs. I'm going to put 2 eggs in that. Eggs are going to serve as part of your binder as well. Beat those just a little bit. We're going to add 1/2 cup of tomato sauce. This is not tomato paste, this is tomato sauce. If you are concerned about sugar content, look on the label. It's surprising to me at the difference in ingredients in tomato sauce. Some of them do not contain sugar, some of them do contain sugar. If it's something that's produced in Italy, it will definitely tell you the truth. And I say the truth because they can add up to, I think it's 5% of an ingredient and not have to list it. In the US, don't get me started on that. But in Italy, they actually put, go figure, whatever they put in there, that's what they put on the label. I think that's a novel idea for people who are very concerned about ingredients. This is about 2 to 3 tablespoons of chopped green pepper. Now, this is one of the ingredients that if you have somebody in your household that goes, I don't want anything with a green pepper in it, blend it up. Just blend it up. We're here for the flavor, folks, not for the look of it or who thinks they don't want some. Now, if there's an allergy there, that's a different situation, but if they just think they don't like it, then you might just give it a try. This is about 1/2 cup of chopped onions, and I've chopped them pretty fine. We don't mind if there's big chunks of onions in ours. Onions get sweet when they cook, and they're not that sulfury taste like they are when they're raw. So they're very pleasant in there. We're also going to add 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. And 1.5 teaspoons of salt. This is pink Himalayan salt, but use whatever you have. So 1.5 teaspoons. We're going to mix all this together. Now I actually have room in my refrigerator right now for this bowl because I had it in here. I took it out, the meat out of the package and put it in the refrigerator. So it's very unusual for me to have room in my refrigerator to put hardly anything. But I do have room for this bowl, so I'm just going to put this back in there. And then this afternoon, when I go to make my meatloaf, I'll just dump it out of this. So this video will have at least 3 parts to it, other than the intro. So we've got our mixing up. This afternoon I'll shape it and bake it off, make the sauce to put on top of it. And I think that gets added the last 15 minutes of baking. But you could always do that when you go to actually reheat it before you serve it for dinner or lunch. And then of course I have to show the final product as we're sitting down at the table to eat it. Okay, let me glance at my recipe, make sure I have everything in there. I have the 1.5 pounds of ground beef, I have 1 cup of saltine crumbs, 2 eggs, 1/2 cup of onion, chopped yellow onion, about 2 to 3 tablespoons of chopped green pepper, a teaspoon and a half of salt, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, and a half a cup of tomato sauce. So, and of course the recipe is going to be in the description of the video. On my screen, the description is down below in the box. There's a box below the screen here, and down in that little corner there's a little arrow, and you touch that arrow and the description comes out over here on this side. So if your screen is set up like my screen, I don't know if they're different or all the same. That's not my area of, not only expertise, it's not my area of knowledge. I just know how to get to the description on everybody else's videos. All right, I'll get all this off the spoon. This gives me a chance to get my dishes all washed up. Plenty of time because I've got to run errands between now and the time we come back and shape this. So you want to keep all your ingredients together because again it's going to soften up those saltine crumbs, and they're certainly not going to be crunchy for long. Now if you have oyster crackers, by all means use oyster crackers. It's the same thing, it's just a different shape. But just plain old saltines or the homemade kind that I've done a video for. I'm sure it's out by now because I did it before this. My husband's the editor, so I have no idea when anything's come out. I have to ask him what's coming up, and it goes on my calendar inside my walk-in closet or walk-in pantry. And I have to look up there and see when something showed already or when something's coming up. All right, let's get a cover for this. Our handy dandy shower cap, and we're going to put this in the fridge, and we will be back to shape our meatloaf and bake it off this afternoon, but it'll just be in the next segment on this video, so stick around. Okay, here we are in our next segment, and we're going to make the sauce for the top of our meatloaf and then set it aside. The reason's going to kind of crack you up probably. I love having enough of things I use a lot. And I used to use a lot of sugar, and brown sugar in particular. I'm really, really fond of brown sugar. But since I've cut back on that just in the last few years, I really don't use brown sugar a lot. So the bags that I have in there are like bags of cement that have sat out in the rain. I mean, they are literally as pretty much hard as a rock. And so I'm going to have to let this set in the other liquid just for the simple fact of it's got big chunks of brown sugar in it. Now I could use just raw sugar, unbleached sugar, and add molasses to it, but you know, I've got this and I may as well just use it. So what we're starting out with is a half a cup of tomato sauce. Now I had mine in a can. I had left over, and so I have it in a jar. So this is about half a cup, and it calls for 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. So this, what looks like a lava rock, I'm just going to put that down in there. I'm going to go with what looks like about 1/3 of a cup. Just taking big chunks of it in here. And this is going to sit in here long enough to where it should dissolve. We will hope it dissolves because this meatloaf has to bake about an hour. And then we'll take it out of the oven and then put our sauce on it and then bake it for another 15 minutes. So that should give it plenty of time. To that, we're going to need about 1/2 teaspoon of yellow mustard. This is just the last little bit of mustard in here, and I'm hoping I have about 1/2 teaspoon. Yep, that's about 1/2 teaspoon. Then we're going to add 1.5 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce again. I'll start out with my half. I always start out with the lesser amount first, just in case I overdo it on the next measurement. All right, let's put this aside. I'll need to put that brown sugar in a different container. All right, so I'll shake this up, and I'll shake it periodically just to make sure it's dissolving. Okay, set that aside. I'm going to get my meatloaf mixture out that we made earlier this morning. As you can see from my clock there, it's about 1:38, so it's on a Friday afternoon, early afternoon, and I've got my oven preheating. And I'm not real fond of sticking my hands down in meat, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. So it looks like our saltines have softened up nicely, and ready for me to dig into it. So this is where the broiler pan comes in handy. As you can see, broiler pan has two parts to it. The top part has openings in it for the fat to drain through. Now, I could easily cook this in a loaf pan. I have cast iron loaf pans, I have ceramic loaf pans, I have glass loaf pans. But when you cook it in a loaf pan, it's just sitting in that fat. Whether or not you have a little bit of fat or a lot of fat, it doesn't matter. It's just sitting in that fat. There's my oven. But with the broiler pan, what happens is your meatloaf bakes to that beautiful crispy crust on the outside, and the fat drips away from it. So easy cleanup. When you get ready to serve it, you simply pick it up with a couple of lifters or a couple of spatulas of some kind, flat turners, wooden turners of some kind. Pick it up and put it on a serving platter. No fat dripping off. It's just nice and crisp on the outside. That glaze that you put on the top of it, the stuff we're making here in this jar, it just stays on there so pretty, and it's not sitting in a puddle of fat. So that being said, that's why we use the broiler pan. So if you have a broiler pan, great. If not, see if you can improvise with putting two different pans together, even if it's a flat pan inverted on top of a larger pan. That way the fat can drip off of it, and you'll still have your meatloaf sitting up above the fat. So let's stick our hands in here. Now remember, this is 1.5 pounds of ground beef, so this is a lot of meat. It's almost like handling an oversized lump of clay or something. And the peppers and the onions keep wanting to fall out of it, and that's okay too. You can just stick them on the top, but get it in about the shape you want. I try to still maintain mine in a loaf just because it is called meatloaf. And it's easier to serve and slice, or slice and serve, I should say. So get that out of there like this. Kind of looks like a football right now. Get it somewhat in a loaf shape. You can still shape it a little bit when you get it on the pan, but it seems to kind of sink in through those little slots in the pan, so get it shaped as much as you can beforehand. You want the top to be rounded, so again, the fat won't puddle on the top of it. It'll just drip off of it. And you might want to take into consideration too the shape and size of your serving dish. If you have guests and you want it to look presentable, you don't want it to be longer than what your serving dish is. That would look kind of silly. You'd have to cut the ends of it off and might look a little suspicious. All right, so we got this kind of rounded out here. Place it on here, and again, you can shape it. You just don't want to press it down too much and make it go inside the slots. Make sure I get every last little piece of onion. Stick it back on there. I'm hoping this is easy to see in the camera. I just never know what y'all are able to see from that side. I'm a very, very bad videographer. I will admit to that right now. Okay, let me get my hands washed and we're going to pop that in the oven. Our oven is set at 350 degrees, I believe, but I'll double check again just to make sure. Yes, 350. So we're going to bake this for an hour, and then we'll come back. The next segment will be on putting our sauce on top of it, and we're going to bake it for an additional 15 minutes. So we'll be back in just a bit. Okay, our timer says it's time to get this out of there. Better put a hot pad down. I don't want to burn anything. Not that it would burn my countertop, but I don't like setting hot things on there anyway. All right. To keep an eye on other things I'm cooking at the same time too. So just know that when you pour this glaze on top of that, some of it's going to go down in the pan. You may get a scorching smell in your oven, but that shouldn't be a problem. Now at this point, you could actually take and transfer it onto a heat-proof pan that is pretty enough to serve in, like an oval baker or something like that. Pour your sauce over, because it's not going to matter if it sits in the sauce and cooks. You just don't want it sitting down that fat. So I'm going to pour, I'm trying to decide if I should pour all of it or just some of it on there. I may just pour some of it on there, let it bake for a while, and then save the rest of it till Sunday. Pour the rest of it over it when I put it in a serving pan. So we'll just do that. And yes, the brown sugar dissolved nicely in that mixture. I shook it and there wasn't a problem at all. And just know that brown sugar is simply a mixture of plain white sugar and molasses. If you take 1 cup of white sugar and 1 tablespoon of molasses, mix it together, that's about what you would want for a brown sugar. With this being a 1/2 cup, you would take a 1/2 cup of, let's see, we had a 1/2 cup of tomato sauce. We had a 1/3 cup, okay, we had a 1/3 cup of brown sugar, so you would have a 1/3 cup of sugar and then 1 teaspoon of molasses. That would make it if you didn't have brown sugar. So don't panic if you don't have brown sugar. You can make it as long as you have molasses. All right, let's pop this back in there. We're going to bake it for about another 15 minutes. And then we'll take it out of the oven. You can get a look at it. Okay, buzzer just went off. We're going to get the meatloaf out of the oven. Again, I wish you could smell it. It smells really, really nice. I'm maybe against my better judgment, but I'm going to attempt to lift this up and put this on here while I have the cameras on. Thinking I need 2 of these. So sometimes you have to loosen it up a bit with one hand. That's a long spatula. I mean, by any account, that's a long spatula. I realize that. Not everybody has one of those. But if you have 2 short ones, you can put them one from one end and one from the other. I'm just using the one on the left-hand side just to stabilize it. Okay, let me move this out of the way. And I'll put this right here. I'm hoping that gets it in view of this other camera. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Just trying to logistically figure it out in my mind. I'm going to pour the sauce over this. That is a lovely meatloaf specimen, guys. That is lovely. Okay, we're going to let this cool off, and I'm going to put it in the fridge. I'll cover it up with some parchment probably, and then one of those shower cap things just to keep the smells from infiltrating everything else in the refrigerator. Then I'll chill it and stick it or cool it off, put it in the refrigerator, and on Sunday, we're ready to just pop it in the oven. It's basically like heating up leftovers, but this is not a leftover. This is going to be our dish for that day. So I'll come back when I get ready to serve this, and we'll show you the finished product, maybe a slice of it on a plate with some mashed potatoes and some sweet and spicy green beans and a roll, and we'll see how it all looks together. But anyway, stay tuned.